So yeah, thanks for chatting to us. So could you please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your academic background?
Yeah, my name's Owain Harries. I'm a media officer for the Football Association of Wales, mainly working with the women's senior team and then both women's and men's intermediate teams. My academic background's a bit different. I went to Swansea University first, did computer networks, then a master's in business management and finance. I worked for 3 years with Hewlett-Packard, an IT company, as a project manager, and then with the chief operating officer of the UK. I had a bit of a gut spell there. I wasn't really enjoying it, and sports journalism was something I always had a big interest in. I just didn't really know the way to get into it, and during the Euros out in France, after a few too many pints, I applied for a journalism course in Cardiff Uni, somehow got an interview, and the interview was the day after the final. So if Wales got to the Euros final, then I wouldn't have gone to the interview, and I wouldn't be in this job now. So it's a bit different.
So you say that media was something you always had an interest in. Was that something you always wanted to work in? Did you always want to work in the media industry?
Yeah, I think it was something sort of picked up as a kid, really. It was just simple stuff, like when I was playing PlayStation, I'd make the TV and commentate in the games myself, and when I was in the park, I was like watching a game on TV, I was always sort of thinking the game through in my head. So it was that sort of side I was more interested in, really. And then as I sort of grew older, I did some work experience with S4C there. I went to watch some of their commentators when I was about sort of 15, 16. And then when I sort of started sixth form, it sort of dried up a bit. I think there's a lot of pressure then of you've got to pick where you want to go to, and you've got to pick where you do it for 40 years now. And I sort of fell into the IT bubble a bit then, and then sort of somehow got out of it.
So did you always envisage working in women's sport?
No, I envisaged working in sport, so really you could kind of say yes then, to be honest with you. Women's football is something I had a bit of sort of awareness of, probably not enough. I think that's something we need to improve in Wales and in the UK as a whole. When I was living up in Glasgow, I think the first Wales women footballer I found out of was Jess Fishlock. One of my friends as a Glasgow City fan, and he said, oh, there's a Welsh player playing for us, and he was Jess at the time. And it's kind of funny now that 6 years down the line, I'm fortunate enough to be working with someone of that sort of calibre, and probably one of Wales' greatest sports people.
So you said about obviously women's sport needing more like exposure in the UK. Do you believe there's such thing as women's sport, or do you think we all need to get behind the idea that sport's sport regardless of your gender?
No, we don't think of it like that, especially in the media department in the FAW. It was just football for us. When we do our reporting, any social media coverage, we make sure that what we do for the men's senior team, instead of the amount of coverage, we do identical for the women's senior team, and I think that's how we should be, really. We try and push to get the content out as much as we can. Media-wise, we fund both of them equally to make sure they get the equal coverage. One or two things we've got to do differently is that we are aware that the reach of the men's stuff goes a lot further, a lot easier. So with the women's stuff, we've got to be a bit clever with the content in terms of squad announcements. Sometimes we've asked kids to do the videos, we've put them in different venues to get a bit more awareness of them, and we try and be a bit different like that. But in terms of the bare bones of the coverage, we try and make sure it's equal as possible.
So obviously you're part of the team that worked on Wales women's last qualification campaign. What was it like being involved in a campaign that was so successful but ultimately falling just short?
Right. Yeah, that was probably one of the highlights of my working life, be it IT or working in the media. It was kind of special, really. The Russia game was kind of cool because we turned up at Spitty Park, sort of sold that out. Really nice night, and the only way to explain it is they just played filthy football. They absolutely played Russia off the park, and technically it was some of the best football any Wales team has played this year. So that was brilliant. In terms of falling short, yes, it was disappointing, but to see the team grow, I mean, the first game I worked with them was in the Cyprus Cup, and we were trying to push coverage there. It was a bit of interest, and it came. Then the England game, we basically silenced 22,000 English fans in St Mary's Stadium, and as any Welsh football fan, I mean, that puts a massive smile on your face anyway. And then the growth then selling out to 5,000 people. And one thing I noticed in Rodney Parade was when you're in the men's game, it's very, the crowd cheers are very deep, very vocal. It tends to be the men's crowd, and that's there, that they're doing the singing, the shouting. The singing in Rodney Parade it was kids doing the chanting, it was kids doing the singing, and I think that shows the potential that what Jane's side has done in terms of growing the game in Wales, because the youngsters, you want to play, you represent Wales in 10, 15 years time, they're the ones going to watch, they're the ones being influenced by it.
So personally, what platform have you provided for the women's side?
I don't know really, we just do our job, I guess. We run the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and YouTube feed for the FA Wales. All of the content goes on the same channel as the men's senior team, so we try and leverage the current popularity with that team onto Jane's team. And what we're going to try and do in the next years, one thing we've realised that the fan base really we're trying to target is the sort of 8 to 16 year olds. And when you look at that sort of age group, I mean everyone goes on, oh you've got to be big on Twitter. It's not necessarily true, because when you look at 8 to 13 year olds shouldn't be on sites like Twitter and Instagram. So we've got to be very aware of that. So I think over the next year what we're going to try and do is a lot more school visits, going into schools, taking some players there, taking some of the coaches and just get them talking about the team and then hopefully that'll get to that sort of age of kids maybe that aren't on your Twitter and your Instagram. And also we're going to try to do a bit more YouTube coverage, because that's where a lot of youngsters go and get their content these days. So the next year you see a lot more on our YouTube. Hopefully we'll try and grow the game further.
Sounds good. So how difficult is it as a fan working for an organisation that you work for, but you're on a professional level and having to remain somewhat impartial?
That's not difficult. It'd be more difficult if I was working for the English FA, being a Welsh football fan. Working for the Welsh football team and being a fan, it kind of helps really, because you get the emotion of everything. When they win, you get the emotion, you know what the message to put out is. But on the flip side of that as well, when the team loses, you get the emotion and you know the message the fans want to hear. There's some good examples there before I started, when the men's team just fell short of the World Cup campaign, losing Thailand 1-0. The Rob Dowling, who worked in the social media team then, he just put out the video of the anthem being sung a cappella, and that sort of went viral, and it's a really strange experience then of seeing something go viral when a result hasn't gone your way, but the thing that's gone viral puts you in a positive light. And it takes quite a skill to do something like that, and it was kind of similar with the women's game in August as well. We might have lost 3-0 against England, to one of the best teams in the world, but the message that we were putting out was inspiring, growing a generation into loving the game. And the photos we were putting out of young kids enjoying the game in Rodney Parade, we put a video out at the end showing the sort of fan zone we had beforehand, and sort of 7, 8 year olds kicking a ball beforehand, then shouting on the team, and people are still then going, well, regardless of the result, they've inspired the generation. And it's quite rare that you can lose to one of your biggest rivals by 3-0, but we've still, people still understand that there's more to it than that, and the future's bright, and hopefully in the next 2 years we'll see the team get into a major tournament for the first time.
So you mentioned that the future's bright. What do you see the future of Welsh women's football looking like?
Hopefully brilliant. For me, it's not just the growth of the international game, but it's also the domestic game. In terms of the international game, I think we maybe do need more players playing across the border, like they do in the men's game. So maybe hopefully more players grow into the WSL. I mean, at the moment you're seeing that with some of the youngsters. I mean, Elise Hughes, a 17-year-old, she started the last 3 games for Everton. In her first start for the club, she scored in the Merseyside derby. I mean, for a 17-year-old, there's no better feeling in the world. If that was Ben Woodburn, everyone would be shouting about this. So we need journalists in Wales to pick up on stories like that, really, and actually use them. And I think sometimes people are just mentioning it on Twitter and stuff, but why aren't we shouting and why aren't there like web articles being written about it? Why is that content not being shared further? So we need to do that really. Domestic game we also need to grow. I mean, we hopefully, I think Sarah Pennant, my colleague, is going to be doing some social media workshop with those teams over the next few weeks. So hopefully that will improve their content coming out. But also the standard there needs to be improved. So we need to hopefully set up academies and set up a good junior environment with the right coaching standards to help improve the players as they grow into the game and hopefully one day wear the dragon on the shirt.